Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
The enemy approaches. Man the ramparts. Get ready the catapults. Oh wait, these are the wrong type of catapults. It's been a long and brutal grind for me to get through the catapults. There's one specifically that interested me. I wanted to have it mastered, so I had to grind on 2 others. And oh, it has been a long and brutal grind. So I'm going to do a quick review on catapults in general. I do not plan on doing this for all mechs. But the catapult specifically interested me. It was a special favorite of mine from the classic Battletech days, CBT. And there was one variant that really interested me. I wanted to really utilize it. However, it's been rough. Specifically, what made it rough is the fact that due to the hardpoint locations, you were kind of forced to run one type for the most of the configurations. And it was just not a style that it played well to me. While I'm on the subject, you hear a lot of talk about what's called a Splatacat. This is the A1 version of the catapult running 6 SRM6s. And that can be very, very effective. I do have some problems with that specific build and design and concept of a mech. And it's not because I'm not an SRM player. It's because even if it's fully optimized, fully reconfigured, set up for that role, all skilled out, you run into a problem. That is, you're still dependent upon the setup and scenario working well. It becomes more of a dumb luck working out, allowing that mech to be really awesome, rather than a mech that really helps your skill and hone your abilities to use that mech well in any situation. For example, in order to get the mech there, you have to have it fully optimized. You need to basically have double heat sinks. I believe you'd have to have endosteel ferrofibrous, as well as the 6 SRMs, all this different stuff, in order to get it there, including thinning the armor, which means you won't be able to take much damage. So if anyone really pays attention to you and starts hammering you, your mech will collapse. You rely on targets of opportunity, let go of your SRMs and just slam that mech, blow it apart. If it comes together well, yes, it can be an awesome mech. Most of the time, you're not going to have those situations come up. Most of the time, it's going to be a painful situations. And I don't want to sound like I'm just being bad on the mech and anyone who runs it is an idiot. That's not what I'm saying at all. I would not recommend that situation for most players, simply because if you want to build it, go for it, it's great. If you don't want to build it, if you're just trying to grind through it, you will find it to be a painfully brutal situation. And until you have the money to put into the mech to have it fully optimized, it's even worse, because you won't be able to have it with 6 SRMs. You'll probably have to run it with 4 or 5 until you can get the money to get the endosteel to free up some weight, ferrofibrous to free up some weight, and the list goes on until you get it there, so it's a fully optimized thoroughbred, able to function well in that situation. It's very painful, and if you're a player wanting to get into it, you will find it very frustrating trying to get there, because it just won't be there. Until you get it fully optimized, it really is an all or nothing mech. If you're not all the way there, that mech will be an exercise in frustration. So the A1 having 6 missile slots is really only good for SRMs or LRMs. SRMs are not the best situation because you're very short range and you're very ammo dependent. anything comes in close and you run out of ammo, you have nothing. If you go LRMs,
New target acquired.
if anything gets in close, you have nothing for it. It's not a design I like. It has no secondary weapons you can fall back on. You're forced to just
New
have all
target
these
acquired.
LRMs or SRMs or combination therein, and all their configurations. They're all in the arms. These large boxes, easy to blow apart for players coming at you. I don't think the catapults,
New target
the A1,
acquired.
the C1, and the C4 are good in close fighting. Simply because the large boxes where you have to put several of your weapons are easy targets and people go for them.
New target acquired.
You can't really hide around a corner and come around because that box they see coming, they'll go for it, and you could lose a key
New
part of your
target
arsenal.
acquired.
The design of these, the way they laid them out, is very inflexible. What I mean by that is the A1,
Target
you have
acquired.
6 missiles. The C1, you have 4 missiles, or I'm sorry, 2 missiles and 4 energy. That one has
New
some
target
flexibility in
acquired.
it. However, 2 of them are in the center torso, and then the left and right torso for the energy, and then your missiles in the arms. That one, I actually had some good success with doing 2 types of configurations. First, 2 LRM-15s and 4 medium lasers, I found it worked very well in general support, and actually worked well in the role that I used it in
Target
Classic
acquired.
Battletech, where you had, I set it back, fired off the missiles. Once it ran out of ammo, I charged it in with the medium lasers as a fresh mech coming into the match. I also liked pairing it with the Whitworth as a cheap support mech. Put them the 2 together on a hill off to the side. They worked very well. I don't know that that reflects real well into the game. That role just didn't suit me. I'm not really a big missile player, so that may have been partially the handicap on it. On my abilities to run that mech, just because the mindset and abilities, it wasn't there. Version of that I did very well with. The C1 actually pulled off the missiles, let them blow the arms off as a decoy, basically, and a lot of them did. I loaded it with 2 medium lasers in the center torso, a large
Target
pulse laser in one torso, and the large laser in the other. I had the large laser on one circuit by itself for some sniper action at long range, and everything in close, and basically filled the rest up with heat sinks. I didn't double the heat sinks or anything, just let it go with single heat sinks for the purpose of grinding through it without having to invest too much money in it. It was actually pretty effective. However, if it got into a prolonged fight, it did get very hot and it was very difficult to get it back down. The C4 with 2 energy and 4 missile hard points was essentially the A1. It really had no flexibility to it. Putting both energy points in the center torso versus the left and right with 4 energy, you could at least do some versatility, but literally you couldn't do anything with it. 1 large laser, 1 large pulse laser in the center torso, or 2 medium or medium pulse, small and small pulse. That's all you could do. There was no real flexibility, so you were still very missile dependent. There was just nothing you could do with it in that regard. It was a very long and brutal grind for me. There was nothing I could do. If you didn't run missile boat, there was nothing you could do, or very little. Now I know you're probably thinking, it's a catapult, it's a missile boat, what do you think? Yes, but in the game, not everything reflects back and forth perfectly. It just didn't, to me, it didn't have the flexibility that you could do things with it. It was just a missile boat. And the drawback with SRMs is you had to hit the / button in order to open your missile doors. Otherwise, when you go to fire them, there's a delay. It didn't really have as much problem with the LRMs because you just didn't have that close in fighting. But with the SRMs being like that, you had that delay, and you had to do it at the start of every match, and inevitably I'd forget. Come into a match, go to hit a button, they didn't fire, then they'd fire, and it did not help my accuracy or weapons proficiency in that situation. So that's the 3 catapults that are... The A1 and the C4 are in my opinion, the lowest rung, because they just had no flexibility to them. You either ran missiles or you didn't run them. Was basically the situation. However, the C1 did have some flexibility in that it had an energy hard point in the left and right torso and 2 in the center, so you could play around with that a little bit. The reason I started grinding on the catapults at all brings me to the K2. 2 ballistic, 4 energy. Initially, that doesn't sound, too impressive or too much different, and indeed, if you compare it with the C1, it really isn't much different. Instead of the missile, you have the ballistic. Slightly different locations and configurations, but I found it far more effective, and this is why. The standard configuration, it was based on the catapult that was very good in campaigns, where you had the particle cannons on the arms, so it didn't have the large boxes. It was lower profile. You can put longer range energy weapons in there, come up to a crest of a hill, peek over a little bit, take a shot, back away, and not expose yourself to as much fire. What I liked about it is the ballistic, because I've been looking for something I could mount dual autocannon 5s in there, ultra autocannon 5s. And that is a nice bed for that. I've toyed many different configurations, 2 large lasers, 2 medium lasers, and 2 AC5s, 2 AC2s, 2 Ultra AC5s, a mixture of AC5s and AC2, all sorts of things. And it can be really fun configuration. It can be a really fun mech to run with because you have a lot of versatility in the configurations you can do. Gauge rifles, autocannons. You can put all sorts of different energy weapons. The list goes on with it, so you can really tweak it. If you want to go into sniping, you can do 2 gauge rifles, pull down the trigger to prime and fire, do 30 points of damage in 1 hit. You can make it into a brawler, all sorts of things. It really is wonderful in that way. So in my opinion, the K2 is a very good catapult. It's flexible, it's workable. The C1 is not as flexible, but still workable. The C4, you're basically just running a A1 because there's really nothing else you can do. And if you saw a video that somebody put together, Splatacat or some Breadlines talking about the Splatacat 6 SRM6s, 36 missiles, ooh, ah, understand if it's fully optimized for that role, yes, it's a devastating, awesome mech. If it's not there, if you don't have it fully optimized, it'll be an incredible frustration for you. And while you're grinding on it, you die, and 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 you die. When you're in random team play, players will not paint targets for you. Players will not give you cover. If you're not able to handle close fighting, if you're optimized set just for long range with LRMs, inevitably they will come around on you and your teammates will leave you out to dry, hanging, twisting there in the wind as you die and die and die again. All that said, it's important to keep in mind when you're looking at a mech where the hard points are, what type of mech weapons you can put in there, and give it some thought to what you can do. Because if a mech has 3 missile slots in one torso, one of the left or right torso, which is fairly common, you should know that you're not going to be able to put 3 LRM-20s in there. They won't fit. Just keep in mind they can either put 3 LRM-15s or 2 LRM-20s if you're trying to make a long-range missile boat. If you can keep these things in mind when you're looking to buy a mech, you'll avoid buyer's remorse. And if you're having to just grind through a mech because you want to have it mastered for another one in that class, just know what you're in for. If you buy one you like, look at the other ones because you have to keep those things in mind. Until next time, game on.